suppose the earliest memories of this area, Ollie, would be the shops that were here. There was, on the corner then, there was George Wright's. It was sort of a shop there that, I don't know, did they have some sort of oil for sale in there and stuff like that? And it was a big shop, kind of a Georgian front on it there. And up from there then was Cavendish's. That was like the Argos of its day, if you like. You had all these Green Shield stamps that if you purchased something, you'd get these stamps and you put them into a booklet. Then maybe at the end of a few weeks, you'd have a full booklet. You might be able to get a kettle or some sort of electrical appliance there. Bow's shop then was further back up the street, just down from Penrose Lane on the corner. It was a butcher's. I think Paul Bow, he's still alive. I see him a good bit out on the Dunmore Road there, but that was where you went in for the sausages and the rashers and that. But up from there then...
wasn't there a connection between Bowes and what's our friend Cork, the writer?
Sean...
No.
Aver.
Did Aver write about his granny, who was one of the Bowes?
I think he did, yeah, he did actually. That was a great book, yeah. I remember that, yeah, she was...
Because she ended up taking over the business, even though she didn't want it originally. It was her husband who had been there.
Yeah, well, a lot of these businesses, I'd say even in George Wright's case, they were in the family for years. And between George Wright's and Bowes, there was another shop called Griffin Cycles. Now, that was, to me, just a magical place because it was quite long, cavernous. You looked in, there was bicycles hanging all over the ceilings. There's all sorts of accessories for bikes, and it was the place to go. And you could put a deposit on a bike. I remember I was working in the Majestic in my I was only about 12 actually. It was amazing you could work at the age of 12 in the Majestic, but I was saving up then, of putting a few quid away every week, and I bought a bike in there for, I think it was about 5 quid or something like that at the time, and I got a big black High Nelly out of there. But that was the place to go. Like, that was the shop. If you wanted to buy a bike, it had to be Griffin's. But there was a smell of paraffin or bicycle-y stuff in there, and you could go in and get your bike repaired or whatever, punctures and all of that. So it was a very vibrant street back then. There was a lot of businesses going on, and there were iconic places that you just went there for whatever you were looking for. That was the place to be. And at the other end then was the Dominican, which to me was the only place to really be in the 60s, be an altar boy. That was show business, or because you could get on the altar, people would see you up there, you could read at Mass eventually. We all wore white, and there was I think it was about 50 to nearly 60 altar boys at any one time there. Billy Costin would have been there, John Frisbee, Kevin Douglas. They were slightly older than me, but that was the place to be. And my mother brought me down there when I was about 8 to join. And I met Brother Pascal. He was just back from Rome. He had spent 20 years there. Pascal Gunning from Cork. And he was very, very gentle man, great guy, really fantastic to be the head of the altar boys. But that was the place to be, Ollie. You know, you got a great buzz about going out on the altar. I remember once there was... I might have been at Easter or Christmas probably, been midnight mass when it was actually at 12 o'clock. And the phalanx of guys coming out, they just seemed to be filing out forever, going into all the pews on the altar. There was probably about really nearly 60 guys. It was just unreal, like, to see so many. And everybody wanted to be on the altar. There was nowhere, I wasn't in the Scouts now. At that part of the town, I went to Mount Sion. Scouts wasn't really an option. I think that was more of a De La Salle thing. Hurling, of course, with Mount Sion was... I wasn't a brilliant hurler, but I love the altar boys, yeah.
And just with the altar boys, did many of you didn't have many weddings and all that, did you?
No, it was, that would have been an order of preachers, OP they were called. They didn't really have, that would have been in Ballybricken. They were kind of, I don't know what they were called, secular, or something like that. They weren't orders, that church there. The odd one.
The Dominicans were monks, is that it?
They were, they were priests, but they were a kind of an order of preachers, if you like. It was like the Cistercians or some of those. But the bishop might come very rarely, but he did come occasionally, Bishop Michael Russell, and he'd say Mass in there, and they would all be there because he gave a few quid out at the end. I think there was...
Wasn't there opportunities to make money, was it?
No, there was total...
I was in St. Patrick's, and you could get if there was a wedding, you got a few bob.
Yeah.
if there was a funeral, you might
Yeah.
have a few on. But do you know what I mean? There was opportunities.
No, we didn't have that. Ali. You cornered that market there, like, so we were waiting for your crumbs, which never really came. But the bishop came occasionally. I remember about one wedding, but very, as you said, very rarely. It wasn't that type of. It wasn't a church to make money in, really, but it was just brilliant to be there. And
did you know the story about the? It's an old story now, but one of the Dominicans painted some of the parishioners' faces up in the altar. Do you know that story?
I don't know, but it was a fantastic mosaic at the back of the church. It was like the Sistine Chapel. It was really amazing stuff. They were all small little mosaics, and the pictures there were blindingly brilliant. I mean, you didn't need to go to the Sistine Chapel. You had it down in Bridge Street, but they could have been local parishioners, Ollie.
No, I heard that story before, but it's...
It was hard to tell because all these, they had kind of halos on their heads, so maybe that didn't show you who they were.
Do you remember, since then we've had all these scandals about the church and all that kind of stuff. I mean, was there any kind of, did you feel, like looking back, was there any kind of like, did you felt that, was Dominican, like, was it okay or was it not okay, where were you at, and all that kind of stuff?
Totally okay, Ollie, I have to be honest. Any of the priests there were they just seemed to be into their job, you know. There was one priest there, he had a bit of a drink problem, it might be a smell of it. Some of them smoked a lot, they drank a lot. Well, some of them, not all of them there, but they didn't seem to be involved in it. I don't know really, but I never came across anything like that. They were very revered in the area, I have to say. I have to say the Dominicans are brilliant. Every year then, they'd send us off to Knockadoon outside Youghal, Ballymacode, and then Knockadoon. It was kind of a head down, beautiful place, and the sea was there and they'd appear. But they'd send you down there for a week every year. That was the place, Knockadoon Camp. You'd go away and there'd be kind of Dominican boys from all over the country would converge there for different parts of the summer. But that was the highlight of it. No, they were brilliant, I have to say. Brother Pascal was fantastic. He'd do the Christmas.
Like your own World Cup or...
That's it, yeah. You play against different teams. And yeah, well, we played Cork in a final down there, all right. But the pitch was sloped. It was up at the top of a hill, and then there was a slope upwards. And I don't know, did we play the slope twice against us or whatever? I don't know if we changed it. We didn't change over at half time. The ball just seemed to keep coming back down the hill towards us. Like, well, we just were beaten by a Cork team in the final, all right, one year.
But just to go back to that time where we were talking about the scandals in the church and all that, like, there was adults didn't really talk about this at the time. It was more got to do with kids were warning other kids or things, wasn't it? Like, that was a norm. If there was some person you need to watch out for.
I have to be honest, Ollie, growing up, I didn't really come across, you know, as an adult, referring back, you would have heard of stories and stuff like that. At the time, it was a magical place for me. The highlights would have been Easter, Christmas, even benediction was great, the Stations of the Cross. It was a place to go, really. I just didn't have much of an outlet. There was no, certainly, youth arts or anything like that back then. It was Fell in the Sculla, where you appeared on stage in the Theatre Royal you sang a song for 3 or 4 minutes and then you were gone. And that was it. Like, but it was a place to go and there was excitement, and the brother would have a Christmas party every year. You'd deck up the whole hall there, and there was a place called the French Friar, it was like the McDonald's of its day, like, and you could get these chips. I think he was down in Parnell Street. And you'd just be waiting at the party, and then you get the smell of these chips coming in bags, and that was the highlight of the thing, you know.
And would you have any, I mean, good way, when kids when they're young, sometimes you might think, oh, like it was a girl, she might think, would I join the nuns, or would I join the priest? Did you have anything like that in your own head, like when you were small? Yeah, there was a brother called Brother Flanagan. He was like a recruiting officer for the Christian Brothers. Now, he would come along every year. And he'd be on, Mount Sion, when I went up to school there. It wasn't so much the Dominicans wanting you to join them. They probably left it up to you. But this guy would be hammering, you know, you've just said it's a great life, lads. You know, you can influence young lives and teach people and go off to the missions and all that. He'd come every year. He's really desperate for people to join the Christian Brothers. And I think some of the lads were thinking this could be okay. But I don't know, it was just a bit sort of a massive jump. But we were being told this about maybe 11 or 12 or 13 and, you know, joining the brothers then. But then there was this thing, you couldn't ever marry or something. There was a kind of I don't know, there was kind of a
a strange thing to jump into, you know. You had to have a calling. That was the thing. He would always be on about, lads, some of you have a vocation now. You have to listen to the vocation. And you go home and you be listening, and God will tell you that you're going to be ready. And it was kind of... No. I was listening all right, Ollie, but yeah, it was just a strange thing to go home and, you know, you'll know that you want to be a brother. That was it. And some of the lads, I think, did go on become brothers. I don't know did they last the course, but he really was evangelical about it. Like, you know, you come every year as well, you know, and kind of keep up the thing. Like, I think that was his job, to try and keep up the numbers in the Christian Brothers. Yeah.
And it was seen as a great thing for every family.
Oh yeah.
To have somebody, a priest or a brother or a nun or something.
I'd say having a priest in the family was the highest you could get. That was the hierarchy. Even a doctor, dentist, no, a priest was the thing, you know what I mean? Because they were so revered at the time, because priests would come around to a house, and even when I was in Kilcone years later, a priest would come around, introduce himself to the family. He might be new to the parish. He'd come in and say, look, I'm Father Murphy, I've just joined, and how are you getting on, and have you been at Mass, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so people would pose with priests. It was, you know, you ever see any of the pictures, everybody standing really proud. The priest is in the middle. There's people all, and everybody would be dressed in their very best. And it was like you had a pope in the family. Like, you know, he was potential pope material. Because I remember with Brian Hunt, my great friend at the time, we had a bet, which of us would be pope first. That was the thing we had, even at the age of 8 or 9. Because every time you attended Mass in the Dominican, you got points. And you got extra points if you did a Mass on a Sunday or benediction or Christmas. And at the end of the year then, there was a cup to be won. And the very first year I was there, Ollie said, I'm going to win that cup. And I don't know, was it 8 or 9 or whatever at the time. The other lads would say, come on, you have to be here a few years. But I was at every Mass, 7, 8, half 10, 12, half 7. Myself and Brian had this battle to see which of us was going to get there. In the end, I won all right. And it was an amazing... My name is on a cup. I don't know where the cup is, but my name is on a cup somewhere for Mass attendance in the Dominican. Brian won it the following year then, but we had an amazing battle. 7 in the morning, Ollie, you'd be up down in the church at Mass before you went to school, and sometimes you might wait for the 8 o'clock Mass to get extra points. Go home, rush your breakfast, tear into Mount Sinai then, but that was an amazing battle. That was my Olympics at the time, you know. So,
It's really funny.
yeah, so...
And like also just growing up, you lived up in Grace Dew,
Morley Terrace, yeah, there was a distinction. Grace Dew was on the left-hand side going up, Morley Terrace was on the right. And there was all these trees, sycamore trees on your way up, you know.
Okay.
So.
And then where did you play?
Played, the place I remember most, Rockfield Park. That was at the back of Morley Terrace. That's, you mentioned World Cups, that's where all the World Cups I had were played, at the bottom of Rockfield Park.
And then when you come down from there, Denny's was Denny's there?
Denny's was there, yeah, where Hypermarket eventually became SuperValu is there now. Denny's was a massive kind of meat processing plant. They made sausages there, and it was I don't know, the smell out of this awfully kind of a smell. At certain times of the week, you get this massive noxious smell coming out of there. So my father worked there for a while. There was 2 Paddy Halpins. My father was Paddy Halpin. There was another man from Ferrybank called Paddy Halpin, and Vincent O'Brien had 2 horses at the time, Gladness and Ballymoss, 2 great horses. But my father was nicknamed, I think, Ballymoss. The other guy was nicknamed Gladness. That's how they distinguish between the 2 Paddy Halpins, you know. So.
And then, speaking of your dad, where did your dad was he involved in the
High Street, Thomas Street, up where just next door where Johnny the Bromheads is now. He had a place. My father Cornelius Halpin had a saddler's there, and he had a massive white horse outside there made of plaster of Paris, and he was on a kind of a black plinth that would be kind of rolled in and out, and there'd be farmers coming in, and CIE had these trucks that were led around by these shire horses for deliveries around the city. There was no vans back then. It was all horse-driven stuff. My father would made kind of not saddles, but harnesses for them, and all the accoutrements. He would have made them for these horses. They were stabled up in Grace Dew, and every morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning, you hear this clop, clop, clop coming down. You look out the window, be about 12 horses coming down to go down to the CIE depot to get ready to go around, do the deliveries around the city. Oh, it was fantastic to see all these horses. That's why I've had a love of horses ever since.
And where were they stabled up in Grace Dew?
I'd say up in Gallows Hill somewhere, there was a kind of a stables up there. I don't know where exactly it was. I think I saw it once or twice, but probably in a field, but there was kind of stables up there for them, and they'd go up every evening, obviously after their work, and then come down in the morning. It was just brilliant to see it. You'd see them going up and down, once in the morning and then once in the evening going back, yeah.
And Gallows Hill is called, was because it was the place where people were hung, is it?
As far as I know, I didn't see any hangings up there, but
it's for like hundreds of years. But
yeah. Well, there was a jail in Waterford, so somebody was hung out of there, so maybe that's where they were hung then, up in Gallows Hill, yeah.
And so to go back to your father's business, like, did he get the leather from Bundoor or something?
I'd say from the tannery, Ollie, yeah, that's a very good connection. I don't know that, but I'd say it probably was from there, yeah. His father was in the family for years. He came down from Newcastle West, my grandfather. He was from Limerick. He married my grandmother, who I think was Waterford then, and my father worked as an apprentice, and he worked up in Thomas Street with him. But I think then what happened was the kind of CIE thing started to move into motorised vans or trucks, and the horse thing just seemed to go off a cliff almost, like just kind of overnight it seemed to be the horses were gone. They were into motorised deliveries or whatever they had, maybe old Ford T, I don't know what they were exactly, but the horse thing just seemed to go in the mid-60s, and that horse then sadly, the white horse outside my grandfather's was broken up. They tried to get it in somewhere. You know, today you could get it into some art gallery or something. Somebody would be delighted to have it. Remember those pigs we had a few years ago here? They're all scattered around the city, but that had to be broken up then. It was a pity. And a lot of people ask me whatever happened to White Horse, but it wasn't a good end anyway, you know. So.
Do you remember actually being there when he was working?
I do, yeah. There's a picture of myself and my sister with my grandfather outside there with the horse. Oh, you wouldn't go in there. You'd see him tapping away and, waxing up stuff. But I came home once, Ollie, and my father used to work in the attic. He used to do some nixers there, and I saw him kind of waxing up all this kind of thread and going into this black stuff and out. And there were kind of long strips of black. I said, "What are you making, Dad?" He said, "Leathers for the Christian Brothers." So my father was making the leathers that I was being slapped at him outside. So he had a contract to make leathers for Christian. I couldn't believe it. I didn't tell anyone in Mount Sinai though. Jeez, That was frightening though. I said, Jesus, it's like a part of some conspiracy or something. Well, anyway, it's not something I talk about in the family. I shouldn't maybe have said that now, but anyway. Geez.
And can you tell me then, just go, but yeah, like I remember Pat Murphy years ago was into leather, and I remember watching him work, and the artist Pat.
Yeah.
But like it's very hard work, like physically.
Oh yeah. There was all this pulling and kind of waxing and trying to hammering. Yeah, you had to. It was probably as difficult as any sculptor, really. You had to just mesh up the leather, make it soft, and bend it this way and that way, and then you had to, the way you'd have to put hair in, and then it's like kind of upholstery underneath the actual stuff that you put on the back of a ploughing horse or that kind of thing. My father was doing all of that. Yeah, he was good at it now.
Yeah, people working for him.
I think it was my grandfather and my father, really. They just kind of did it together, There'd be farmers coming in and out. My grandfather was very shrewd now. He had a sign at the back, "We give credit and great credit for those who do not ask for credit." So he was kind of, there'd be no messing with him,
So the grandfather was Limerick?
Yeah, he was from Newcastle West,
and was your father from Limerick?
No, High Street.
So he was born in Waterford?
Yeah, born in Waterford, yeah, High Street.
So did your grandfather bring that trade with him?
I think he did, yeah. We came down and set up business here.
So there was an opening in Waterford, basically?
Yeah, maybe that's why he came here. He might have heard that,
And come here, did they do anything for any of the big houses? Like generally, like say Lord Waterford or...
He could have, Ollie. I don't really... Maybe for horses he might have done, yeah. I know anything to do with horses he probably was, if they were involved in that. I don't think he was doing upholstery with furniture and all that. No, not that, but...
No, what I'm saying is the gentry would have been all involved in horses. So do you know anything about that, or was there any links within the...
I do know he made saddles, he made harnesses, he made straps and bridles, and he made all of them. So I would imagine he did all right. I don't know directly who they were, but he had a very good business there, and he did very well. When my father and mother married, they went to an auction up in Morley Terrace for the house, and my grandfather bought the house for them on that day. whatever the auction, whatever the price. I think it was £500 at the time. He just paid it. They didn't have a mortgage, so he must have been doing okay.
They could just hang up their hat.
Exactly, just walk in. The whole place is ready made. But we had an outdoor toilet at the time, all right.
Wow, very posh.
You probably had a hole in the garden. The only thing was that my father had all sorts of coal in there and stuff stacked, so you had to nearly find the jacks in there, and you could come out with the. Anyway.
It's like the other thing then, obviously, about your father's business would be the smell of leather.
Yeah, it was a very pungent smell of leather in there, all right, yeah, but that was a good sign, because if there wasn't, you probably weren't doing very well, you know what I mean? You had to have the smell of your place to show that you were, like Denny's, if there wasn't a smell coming out of there, there was no sausages being made, you know?
On the higher side of Dennis's, where the shop was, or the lower side?
I think the lower side, I think maybe U-Decor.
Yes.
I don't remember Johnny the Bromhead being there, which is, he wouldn't have even been very young then. I don't remember a pub there really, but at that age, you probably wouldn't. I just remember my grandfather's shop there, and the White Horse, and it was a landmark. You look up the street, you see the horse. It was a great bit of marketing, I thought, at the time. Just look out for the White Horse, and you'd see him. So he was very, well, I didn't see anything like that in the city at the time. And everybody spoke about it, so he must really have, I don't know where he came up with the idea, but it really worked. And it just was something, it was an iconic statue in Waterford at the time, you know.
And do you remember any other places on Thomas Street at that time? Any other shops?
I do remember Whelan's, Dave Whelan and Kevin Whelan. Yeah, his dad worked in, he was the TV man. No,
Tony, was it Tony?
I think Tony, yeah. Anything to do with tellies, he was the man. Just go down to Tony Whelan, and he had a constant stream of. Now he had it in his house. He had it in a room in there or something. I do remember going in there once or twice, and there was TVs and bits of stuff everywhere. But he was the whole man. You needed anything done, and I think TV at the time was a bit of a mystery. I mean, if the thing didn't work, you hadn't a clue. But he did. He was ahead of his time, really, and he dealt with all of that kind of stuff. So.
Well, I believe he was a very.
I was a genius, yeah. He was brilliant, I didn't know him that well, but I did know he mended tellies, and if there's anything wrong with it, there was people constantly bringing stuff in and out there, and I don't know how he operated, but he did, and he sorted it out, he was brilliant, yeah. So that was, he was up the street.
What about the Regal? Would you gone to the Regal?
Oh yeah, the Regal was, to me, the place, you had to be there every week, Ollie. You really did, and I think it was sixpence to get in. And I'd asked my mother for the money for the sin. You had to be there every Saturday, because you'd look every Wednesday. They'd put up the signs for the new films. You'd look in the window, and Lonely or the Brave, Kirk Douglas coming Saturday. I have to see that film. And I'd ask my mother if she'd give me sixpence to go down. Now sometimes she'd give it out. She'd always looking for money, but that was you had to be the Saturday. That was the day it would run for the week then. But I wasn't there during the week. It was the weekends I'd be there. And you had to be there on Saturday then. And I loved the Regal. It was a brilliant cinema, yeah. And just down the road from me as well, so.
Was it a noisy place when you were in there?
Oh yeah, just
People shouting and everything?
Shouting and roaring and stuff like that. Yeah, it was just a sort of, you reacted to it, really. It wasn't a, hey! I remember Barabbas was on there, and Anthony Quinn. And, he was a slave, and he was in the Colosseum, and they were throwing everybody out to be slaughtered by these lions and everything. And there's all this kind of stuff, the Roman emperor. But when Barabbas came out of the dungeon, when you brought him up and he stood in the Colosseum, a massive cheer, because you knew this guy was going to deliver, Hey, like that. The hero, yeah, it was totally heroic. And he was looking around, slightly fearful, but the size of this guy, and he fucking destroyed whoever he had to deal with, and you would react, yeah. It was, a Pate News then would come on, this fellow with a British accent now, that was like something out of, Tokyo or around the world. Jesus, suddenly the world was, you had to go to the Regal to see the world. You couldn't, I didn't really have TV at home. We begged my father for years to get TV. We used to hang outside the Gilligan's railings just a few doors down, trying to watch TV through their garden, through a window, and you just saw a screen in the background, and the opening credits for The Virginian would come on, and you're trying to lip read what was going on, and sometimes they'd pull the curtains on you, and the cinema, the TV was over, but hanging out at their railing watching telly, Ollie, that was, the thing. But the Regal was great, yeah, that was the place to be every Saturday. And Sunday you had to be in Kilcoane Park. That was, they were the outlets that I had growing up,
And Kilcoane was obviously
Oh,
the
yeah.
soccer team.
That was, to me, yeah. You just had to be there. Waterford United were a brilliant team at the time. Alfie Hale, Johnny Matthews, Jimmy McGeough, all these great players, John O'Neill, they just were heroes, and they were national heroes, and some of them played for Ireland. And Peter Thomas, the Cat, what a goalie he was, and everybody was there, Ollie. It was packed, and then they had big stand, and there was a rusty, smaller stand. I think the bigger stand was a bit dear, but the rusty one seemed to make more noise. They'd be banging off, Waterford! You just hear this rusty fucking shit kind of reverberating all over the place. Like it was a dog track, really, and you were on the perimeter watching it, it was just, Waterford didn't have outlets. There was a Regal, it was Kilcoane Park and the Dominican. That was my world, really. And, I had to be there. Every second Sunday they'd play. Finn Harps would come down, Cork Hibs. And there'd be a bit of fear then, because Hibs are, they could put one over us. Brendan Bradley for Finn Harps, he was a deadly centre forward. Jesus, he could beat us as well. But when we beat them, there was a massive thing, and you could leave there a bit deflated if you got beaten. Very occasionally you might be beaten, or a draw or something like that. But Waterford nearly always won. And I remember Johnny Matthews and fellas like this skimming up the wing, and if you took a shot, you'd be watching it, but your leg would be going with it. You'd be nearly taking the shot yourself, you know what I mean? It was great. It was great, Ollie. Great times. Yeah, I remember coming out of there. You mentioned Rockfield Park, but we'd be going around like this, tapping your arse and going, "Oh, lads," as if you were on a horse or a cowboy. Yeah, a cowboy was the thing to be, because at Christmas, I remember I got a gun and holster. That was the highest present you could get. Do you forget about? I don't know what they're getting today, but if you got a gun and holster and a hat and a sheriff's badge, that was Christmas. You didn't need any more toys. You dressed up and you went around and you were on a horse, and Meccano was big at the time. It was Scale Electrics. But to me, a cowboy outfit, that's what I wanted more than anything. And if you got that.
And just go back again, do you know the down around the docks? Because you weren't too far from that, and your father was only on Top Street. Would you come down around the docks at all?
I do remember the docks, yeah. There was big buildings down on the quay there, and they were very impressive now. Different segments, and a lot of stuff seemed to be coming and going. The cattle boat used to come in a lot, the Seba Barry. When I was in the post office, these guys would come in to be cashing their wages in the post office or sending money back to Italy. And the cattle boat was huge at the time, but loads of cattle loading on, going to Libya, and some of them going to different parts of Africa. I know who was the family who had that. I'm not sure who. Purcell, yeah, they would have been massive. Yeah, that was. So the docks were shipping an awful lot of cattle out of Waterford, big ships and cattle going on them, and off they went. You see the cranes down there, loads of tall cranes with big kind of lifting stuff on and off, and they always seem to be busy. So Waterford was a very busy port at the time, and you go down there just even to watch what was going on was exciting, really, because the ships coming in from different parts of the world and that. So.
And back up towards where you were, your father shot, there was a lot of abattoirs around that area too.
Yeah, Penrose Lane was the big abattoir then, and Brian Hunt brought me down there once, and if you climbed up, you could get up towards the window, and you could hold onto these rusty bars that were kind of in there. I'll tell you, it was rough now, Ollie. You see all these poor pigs coming through on kind of conveyor belts, and sheep being, whatever, and that was an extremely busy place. Then you might see blood flowing down the gutters and that. Oh, that was really busy. Penrose Abattoir. Pigs, and they were killed on different days. Sheep would be killed one day, pigs the other. I tell you, you didn't look into the window too often. I looked in once, I said, I don't want to see any more of this, but I couldn't. The guys who did the job fascinated me. How could they just do this job and just just did it, and obviously we all like lamb chops and a bit of bacon, but seeing where it came from was scary enough now. But we were only 8 or 9. Brian lived in the Glen, and he just seemed to be very adventurous. He could go up the firs. He was kind of he was a bit of a leader in a way. He was a bit wild in that. He used to melt lead. He's up in his grandmother's in Morrison's Avenue. He'd just throw lead into a pot, he'd have a Bunsen burner, and he was very scientific minded in that, and just fucking lead would be bubbling all over the place and spilling out, and if you burnt you could get a right burn off it, like. But yeah, so he introduced me to a lot of stuff like that. But Penrose Lane was a very busy abattoir, yeah, but it was.
And then with the cattle mart up the road as well.
Cattle mart every Thursday, I think they were there. The cattle come in from everywhere, farmers and fellas poking with sticks there, and tweed, or there's kind of, farmers' hats and that. Oh yeah, Waterford was thriving at the time, and all the pubs around Bobby Grace's, and there was other pubs, they'd be in and out of there. And at the start of the day, full of cattle all over the place, stuffed into pens, and you'd hear, oh, give me one coming in, and all this kind of going, the auctioneering going on. You'd hear that in another kind of, in the centre then there was that kind of a building, and outside all the pens. But as the day went on, the pens started to get empty, more empty because started to buy. But you felt sorry if you come around at 8 o'clock, might be a scattering, a few cows weren't sold, and oh Jesus, they were left on their own. You felt a bit lonely for them, because obviously they didn't make the price or somebody didn't like the look. But then on a rainy day, maybe some of the lads said, you'd have a brown river going down Glen Hill, just all the sewer. You couldn't cross the road because this stream of shite just going straight down like this. Yeah. Well, there was a massive. Waterford was a massive mart, though. It really was. Like, it took over all of Ballybricken. You can imagine Ballybricken Green full of pens, cattle, fellas coming and going, poking cattle, putting into trucks, selling, buying, and all this spitting on hands and shit everywhere, Ollie. But I tell you what, there was a lot of money in that shite because fellas going out with full pockets going home,
And speaking of that, which I was going to say now about the mart. Oh God, there's something I was going to say. I can't remember. Go on.
about Ballybricken, was it? Or?
Yeah, there was something like a mart.
Ballybricken was just a hive of activity.
Sorry, pubs. You mentioned the pubs. You mentioned Bobby Grace's. Did you go into any of those pubs when they were like years ago, like when you were young, very young?
No. My father was a teetotaler, Ollie, all his life a pioneer. So were his brothers. Drink was taboo completely.
Why was that? Like, was there a reason why all the brothers were?
I don't know really. It was a big thing at the time, though. I mean, I mentioned about being a member of the Altar Boys. Being a member of the Pioneers was a kind of another club that you could belong to, a kind of a place to go to meet other like-minded non-drinkers, if you like. It was like Sodalities. It was like the Legion of Mary or something. They were big clubs, like that people just went to maybe once a week and that. And to have a Pioneer pen, it was like a medal of some distinction, like going around, and they did prominently have it up their lapel always.
Would you say, looking back, would you say that your family were quite religious then?
Yeah, at the beginning, definitely. I remember kneeling down on the lino, saying the rosary as a family. I don't know why we were saying it, but we were saying it. The family that prays together stays together. That was the big phrase at the time, and you'd be kneeling down saying the rosary, yeah. And you say the full 5 decades as well, you say. After a while, we said, can we cut it short now? We've said 2 glorious mysteries or whatever. We have to say the 5, and that went on like. And my parents, my mother and father, they always attended Mass. My mother would nearly always be in the front pew as I was coming out. She'd be a regular Mass goer. My father as well. There'd be a picture of this Sacred Heart, and there'd be a little kind of a red light in front of it flickering like. That was a big thing. You had to have a big picture of the Sacred Heart, Jesus there, and all of that. Like, so, yeah, it was a religious enough household. Yeah.
I suppose most houses were as well.
Well, religion was an outlet, Ollie. As I said, maybe not always for good. I don't know, but that was a place to go. It was something to belong to, something to meet people in, just something to be part of, I suppose. Really, and it was kind of the Redemptorists, or there'd be missions every year, I think. It could go on for weeks now, and there'd be fellas pumping the pulpit there and about fear and damnation, and everybody has to lead a good life, and sin is everywhere. It was drummed into you, though. You were brainwashed. My parents were probably brainwashed. You know what I mean? Hell was a big thing, though. Like, that was a real place, and you could go there if you didn't do whatever. So.
And your mother, where where was she from?
Olive Street. That would be like at right angles to High Street, just around the corner. That would be the other end of City Square facing, I don't know what that, just, yeah, down by the Friary. Yeah, that's it, yeah. Just down from the Friary, Olive Street. And High Street then was, he was from High Street, she was from Olive Street. Just, no, but there wasn't really a distinction. Olive Street was a bit more, I don't know, working class. High Street was a bit more kind of slightly upper, strange, and they were only around the corner from each other. What if it was a smaller place then, and there was pretty big distinctions between these areas, like, you know.
Would you notice that as a child, like the class system or class divisions, some shape or form?
Well, I do remember the big class distinction I had was Mount Sion Water Park. Now, Water Park was like Harrow and Eton to me, because they wore blazers and ties, and they nearly all had tans. I don't know where they were getting these tans from, but they just looked kind of dressed up, more kind of nearly foreigners, like in Waterford. We were in Mount Sion, and it just, there was a distinction there, Ollie. Yeah, definitely. You could feel Newtown would be very much upper class. I used to caddy for Major Cunningham up in the Waterford Golf Club. He was living out there. And you know, hello, you slightly almost British kind of accents or whatever. Get that bowl for me there or whatever. No, he was grand, but you definitely knew this guy was posh, or I thought he was anyway. But you see, that's the distinction. Maybe you were kind of slightly looking up at these. Maybe they weren't as posh as you thought they were. But at the time, they definitely were. They played golf, number one.
And how did you end up caddying up in golf course?
Every Saturday you'd go over and you just heard other lads did it. They were looking for caddies. There seemed to be a lot of fellas playing golf. And you could go over any day and, yeah, you'll come up with me. You're the caddy or whatever, and you'd be carrying these clubs around and trying to find a ball in the rough that went missing and that. And there was a few extra quid then if you could find other balls, lost balls there. You could make money, Ollie. You know, it was, I think it was sixpence for the day or something, but loads of guys were doing it, and it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it, like, because pitch and putt and Tremor, they had a beautiful pitch and putt, a small 9-hole course there. I think there's a car park there now. The Hydro was there. It was a cafe.
It's not interesting that the working classes played pitch and putt, and the upper classes played golf.
Well, golf was a day event, really. These guys were out for the day, and you could spend your whole Saturday over in the golf club, which I did. But to play it, you could go to Tremor and hire out a putter, and I think there were putters, yeah, because the small green, Crazy Golf was big at the time as well. But that was a beautiful, small 9-hole place. The Hydro was fantastic. That was just like exotic at the time of Waterford, you know, because the Wimpy was big in the city, and the Hydro in Tremor, you could go in for high tea and you get a mixed grill. A mixed grill now was like a kind of a 5-course meal or a cordon bleu at the time. And a mixed grill in the Savoy. The Savoy had a restaurant over the cinema. If you had a mixed grill and you told a fella that, jeez, you're doing well.
And do you ever remember being to Savoy restaurant?
I think once I was in there, yeah, but it cost a few quid now to go in there. It wasn't cheap. It was posh, yeah. The Wimpy was posh enough, but to go into if you went into the Savoy Grill, the grill now, you did very well. You must have been doing well. You know, not everybody went in there. You had to have money to go in there because, you know, it was just top class. The service was great. The look of the place, just exotic in Waterford at the time. As I said, the amenities weren't that, you know, widespread at the time, so these are places to aspire to. You kind of saved up to get into the grill, you know, you kind of look forward to it, you know.
Once in a lifetime.
Yeah, it was a once in a lifetime experience, and I think maybe I was in there once later on, but the Savoy Cinema now I was in a good few times, all right.
And sorry, just go back to smells, because shops with smells, you mentioned what you call down Bottle Street. George Wright's
Yeah.
had a smell.
Paraffin, yeah, there was kind of, yeah.
Whatever it was, Turks. And then obviously your dad's shop had the smell of leather. And then the smell out the street.
Penrose, the abattoir, there was a smell out of there as well. Like
what other shops in Waterford? Can you remember?
Woolworths was a fantastic shop. It's down where Penny's was, or is, at the time. And the frontage of it, the look, they were kind of like the same all over England as well, in Ireland. Just the doors, it was a glitzy, kind of the Ritz. They really designed it really well, and It was the shop. It was kind of had everything, you know, like a kind of it was a pound shop, and you could buy different kind of stuff that you couldn't normally buy. You know what I mean? And it was the shop to be in. I remember it really well. And yeah, if you went into Woolworths to do your shopping or to buy something, you know, you nearly tell somebody, I was in Woolworths and I got this or whatever. It just is a name just zinged off the tongue. It was, yeah. You kind of, I'm going to buy something in there. I'm going to Woolworths, you know. It's kind of,
What about Chapman's? Would you remember the smell of Chapman's?
Chapman's on the Quay, yeah. Coffee was the big thing there. That was fairly exotic as well. And they had all these different coffees displayed from different places. They had the kind of grinders for coffees. They had kind of implements that, well, I don't know what they were doing, but they were doing something anyway. And they looked different and they looked kind of exotic. Hearn's on the Quay was a brilliant shop as well, where you'd have all the, I don't know, you see there's pulleys and trolleys and money being pulled up, and you could see them tearing around the whole place on a track. Then they come down into another office, and then somebody would take the money out, and the thing would go back empty to that particular department. Just to look at this money flying around is fascinating, yeah.
Go back to Chapman's for a second. Did you ever taste coffee when you was young?
No, tea was the thing, Ollie, and my name was obviously Halpin, but there was a tea called Halpin's Tea at the time. And there was buses, CIE buses going around with big banners, Halpin's Tea. And I was convinced that was our tea. And I felt compelled then to drink that tea, because we own that company and we have to drink Halpin's Tea. Like, so, no, coffee was very exotic, Ollie, no.
It's funny that we can all associate Chapman's with the smell of coffee, but we never tasted coffee.
I don't know who was drinking it. Maybe Major Cunningham and his buddies in the golf club or something.
I think it's the rich people who drink it.
I think it was, Ollie. You know, it wasn't. No, coffee was totally. You'd nearly be afraid to drink coffee. What was that? We drink tea. You know, it kind of. It just didn't. Yeah, it's just. How would you drink coffee? Or you know, it's just. I didn't. Why would you even want to drink it? Even like, we have tea. Like, you know, why do you need this coffee? And it wasn't something that was.
And just go back to your end of.
How are we doing for time, Ollie? By the way, sorry. I have to get this jab thing done. Like.
It's 10 to 4.
Oh, I'll have to go shortly. Yeah.
The brewery. Do you remember the brewery?
Yeah, Cherry's Brewery. No, again, if you're talking about smells, there was a massive yeast kind of smell coming out of there nearly all the time. My uncle Paddy O'Brien worked there, and they made their own beer there. Phoenix.
You never go down there?
I remember going, yeah, I think we kind of went in and around. You know, you might be told to get out of there, because the ESB was our playground up at the back of Rockfield. Now, transformers and wires, and Drippin' O'Mara, God be good to him, sadly no longer with us, but he used to climb the pylons. No, Ollie, I'm serious. He nearly went to the top of these. He could hear the crackle of the electricity. Scary. It's like climbing up the Eiffel Tower. And he was like a goat. He'd just go up all the ladders, and we'd be looking up at him. We were terrified. We'd maybe go to the first base. He'd go nearly to the top. It was unreal. And that part of, Rockfield Park, ESB, they were your playgrounds. Cherry's Brewery, you go in around, have a look. You'd see all this. You look in and you'd see all these vats and wires, or not wires, kind of all sorts of beer being made in there. But they made Phoenix, as far as I know. Then they made Hoffman's, and they were a big concern. Cherry's, to get a job in Cherry's, you were doing very well. Like, it was loads of Waterford people worked there. It was a very cherished place to work, and it seemed to be nationally known as well. I think it went into decline for a while, but it's come back again. I think there's some whiskey thing going on there now. Oh yeah. The Waterford Glass was number one. But Cherry's was good as well. ESB would be a great job as well, but Cherry's Brewery was in the hierarchy of good jobs, just up near the top.
And like Mount Sinai, was there most of your friends in Mount Sinai?
Some of the lads from Morley Terrace, Derek Egan went to De La Salle, Eddie Beggan, I think he went to De La Salle. I went to Mount Sinai, Brian Hunt went to Mount Sinai, Ken Swift went to Mount Sinai. Yeah, it was Mount Sinai or De La Salle at the time. Now, De La Salle tended to have a better reputation, whereby Mount Sinai, there was a lot of beatings up there. Now, I saw some pretty rough stuff at times, so.
They were using their fashion.
Yeah, my father's leather. I tell you what now, Ollie, when I put out my hand and I said, Sheena Mock the Love, and you get a lash of this leather. I never knew at the time until later, and my father made those leathers. That was just weird when I found out, and I said, Jesus. Oh, I couldn't say that. I'd have to leave the town, let alone Mount Sinai. No, you couldn't. No, Jesus. That was, I was actually, oh Jesus, that was hard to concentrate. I couldn't understand why he was making them, but it was a job. He just.
What did he do after that then? When did the horses finish? What did he do?
I think maybe the late 60s. I don't remember him working there. He started working the chipboard then, the Munster chipboard, which is up there.
So he just got like a regular job?
Got a regular job then, and used to come home and then with big high Nelly, the back on the back bracket like stacked high with chipboard, which was our fire then, fuel for the fire. Like it broken up bits of chipboard. That was, I think, big trucks would come down from, I think, Scariff in Ennis, or logs on the back, regularly coming down to Waterford there for the chipboard to be made, and that's where the wood came from. And he worked there then.
And did he ever do anything with leather after at all, like as a hobby?
I think he made a few school bags for people, or he might have. No, not much though. No, I think that just went really, he didn't.
Did you ever go out yourself?
I never did, Ollie, to be honest. He never kind of invited me to do it either. He was engrossed in his job, and he didn't say, look, I'm going to show you how to make things and that. I might have waxed up a bit of kind of the thread that went through it at times, but not really. No, it never became something I aspired to well, maybe it just ended then, and then he didn't have anything to work for or towards in that, but it was a skill though. It definitely was a skill, and
it was an art form.
yeah.
Conor, listen, thanks very much.
Thanks, Ollie. Yeah.
And really appreciate that. And it's lovely, just lovely to get kind of a picture.
Yeah.
As I said, the use of bits and pieces.
Yeah, it was good to remember a few things. It's good workout for the brain anyway. Thanks, Ollie. Okay, cheers, all.